We'll get into the reasonings behind this, but I mean, this no confidence vote would have almost certainly removed the Prime Minister from office. So is this move reading like the actions of a desperate Prime Minister who will try to hold on to power at any cost?
Well, thank you for having me. The Constitution of Pakistan prohibits a Prime Minister who is facing a vote of no confidence from dissolving the National Assembly. And because effectively this is what has happened, Pakistan is facing its biggest constitutional crisis in recent memory. I would argue that it's even bigger than the crisis in 2007, 15 years ago, when a military dictator sacked the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. In this case, the entire legislature has been dissolved. And it is indeed, as you say, the acts of a Prime Minister who knew that he'd lost this game. This was, one could argue, a smart move by a very desperate man. And as in the case of the crisis I mentioned in 2007 and several political crises since then, all eyes are now on the Supreme Court. And let's see what happens tomorrow.
You used two adjectives to describe this crisis. You used both constitutional and political. I think it started off as a political crisis, but right now, clearly, it is a constitutional crisis.
The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly dismissed that vote of no confidence, invoking an article of the Constitution that he has no authority to interpret and has never been interpreted by the higher judiciary in a matter like this. So it is indeed a breach of authority. And I repeat, we'll have to see how the Supreme Court judges interpret this. And that will determine whether we still have a parliament or whether we are indeed moving towards a caretaker interim and eventual elections.
Where does the country's military stand in all this? Because the all-powerful establishment, who was once an ally of the Prime Minister, where do they stand? Because even they've come out and said that they're against, they're criticizing this unilateral dissolution of Parliament.
The military is an opaque institution, so one can only guess at their motivations and interpret their actions. As you say, they have said that they are not involved in Pakistani politics. We all know that to be untrue historically. There's certainly a lot of suspicions amongst close observers that the next appointment of an army chief, which is due by November, dictated the calendar here, that this vote of no confidence is an attempt by not just the political opposition, but also a military high command that is concerned about where Imran Khan might go with the next appointment for an army chief.
Tell me very briefly, I mean, no Prime Minister in Pakistan's history has actually completed a full term in office. I mean, why is that?
Well, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto did complete a full term, but soon after, you're absolutely right, he was toppled by a military government and eventually hanged. This is a reflection of civil-military power dynamics, where anytime a civilian prime minister looks like he or she is about to consolidate their authority, the most powerful institution in the country, which is the military, and other forces have moved against that prime minister. So this is a function of those power dynamics. I will say, though, that although individual prime ministers have not completed their full term, one of the big differences between this transition, this democratic period that we've had since 2008 versus earlier ones, is that while the prime minister might not complete his, in this case, full term, the parliaments have. And that has ensured a measure of democratic continuity and peaceful, essentially non-controversial transfers of power. This is the first time that we're seeing a parliament since 2008 not complete its full term, if indeed this, these actions are, come to pass.
It is a good distinction you make. All right, Shehryar Fazli, thank you very much for coming on. I do appreciate your analysis. Thank you.